23 years of my life dissolved in a 15-minute meeting. No ceremony, no acknowledgement, just a polite smile and a manila folder sliding across the conference table. They called it organizational restructuring. I called it what it was, age discrimination wrapped in corporate speak. At 57, I had become inconvenient. Too expensive. Too set in my ways. Too old. The woman sitting across from me was 32, blonde, and had the CEO's jawline. Rebecca Thornton. His sister. She would be taking over my department effective immediately. No transition period. No knowledge transfer. Just a handshake and a security escort to clean out my desk. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I signed the papers, took my severance, and walked out with my head high. Because I knew something they didn't. 23 years of institutional knowledge doesn't just disappear because you print a termination letter. The writing had been on the wall for months. Budget meetings I was suddenly excluded from. Decisions made without my input. Young faces in the hallway who looked through me like I was office furniture. At Meridian Financial, I had built the client relations department from the ground up. When I started, we had 12 clients and a filing cabinet. When they fired me, we managed portfolios worth $2.3 billion. But numbers don't matter when perception shifts. And somewhere along the way, I had shifted from seasoned professional to legacy employee. The kind of person who remembered when things were different, who questioned new initiatives, who had the audacity to suggest that experience might be valuable. CEO David Thornton was 41 and believed disruption was a virtue. His sister Rebecca had an MBA from a prestigious school and ideas about modernizing client engagement. She spoke in buzzwords about synergy and digital transformation. I spoke in decades of relationships and proven strategies. The meeting was efficient. HR representative, legal counsel, and Rebecca herself. David didn't even attend. Couldn't look me in the eye, I suppose. They explained that my position was being eliminated as part of a strategic realignment. Rebecca would be leading a dynamic new approach to client services. We value everything you've contributed, the HR woman said, using the same tone she probably used to discuss vacation policies. Your institutional knowledge has been invaluable. Past tense. Everything past tense. I looked at Rebecca, who was scrolling through her phone while my career ended. She glanced up once, offered a tight smile, and went back to her screen. This was the person who would inherit my relationships, my systems, my life's work. Someone who had never worked a day in client services, but had the right last name and the right birth year. The security guard waited by the elevator. They had already packed my personal items. A box of family photos, a coffee mug from the company's 10th anniversary, a small plant that had survived 3 office relocations. 23 years reduced to what fit in a cardboard box. Rebecca Thornton might have had the title, but she didn't have the relationships. Client services isn't about digital dashboards and automated workflows. It's about trust built over decades, about knowing that Mrs. Patterson calls every Tuesday at 2 p.m. worried about her late husband's pension, about understanding that the Morrison account requires quarterly face-to-face meetings because they're old school. I had memorized anniversary dates, children's names, investment preferences. I knew which clients needed reassurance during market volatility and which ones wanted hard data without emotional cushioning. I knew the difference between a client who was genuinely concerned and one who was just testing our responsiveness. Most importantly, I knew the clients who generated 80% of our revenue. And those clients knew me. The first cracks appeared within a week. Mrs. Patterson called for me on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Rebecca took the call. Later, I heard from a former colleague that Mrs. Patterson had been difficult and that Rebecca had suggested she consider digital communication methods for efficiency. Mrs. Patterson had been with Meridian for 18 years. Her portfolio was worth $12 million. She didn't want efficiency. She wanted familiarity. The Morrison account was next. They arrived for their quarterly meeting to find Rebecca in my office, my nameplate already replaced. They sat through 30 minutes of presentation slides about innovative portfolio management solutions before politely excusing themselves. They didn't schedule a follow-up. I wasn't gloating. I was watching a system collapse that I had spent 2 decades building. Every client relationship was a thread in a web of trust and consistency. Pull out the center thread, and the whole structure becomes unstable. Rebecca was smart enough to realize the problem, but too proud to admit she needed help. She sent emails to clients introducing herself as the new director of client innovation. She organized webinars about the future of financial planning. She redesigned the client portal with colors and fonts that looked more contemporary. But she couldn't redesign relationships. And she certainly couldn't replace 23 years of institutional memory with an MBA and good intentions. The phone rang on a Thursday evening, 3 weeks after they'd escorted me out. Unknown number, but something made me answer. Maybe curiosity. Maybe instinct. Is this Vera Dalton? The voice was professional, calm, familiar in a way I couldn't place. Yes. My name is Jonathan Pierce. I'm the managing partner at Stonehaven Wealth Management. I believe we've spoken before. Stonehaven. I knew the name. A boutique firm across town, smaller than Meridian but with an impeccable reputation. Jonathan Pierce. I had met him at industry events over the years. Cordial conversations, mutual respect, but nothing more. I heard about your departure from Meridian, he continued. I'm wondering if you might be interested in a conversation. Off the record, of course. We met at a quiet restaurant downtown. Jonathan was in his 60s, silver-haired, with a kind of presence that comes from decades of success without the need to prove it. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. I'm not going to insult you by pretending this is about charity, he said. I'm calling because Meridian just lost their most valuable asset, and I think they don't realize it yet. He was right. They didn't. I've been watching your work for years, he continued. The client retention rates, the portfolio performance, the way you handle crisis management. I'm not interested in what you know about Meridian's business practices. I'm interested in what you know about taking care of people. The offer was straightforward. Senior partner, client relations. Full autonomy over department structure. Equity stake in the firm. And something I hadn't had in years, respect. I'm not looking for someone to fit into our existing system, Jonathan said. I'm looking for someone to help us build something better. I didn't say yes immediately. But I didn't say no either. For the first time in months, I felt something other than betrayal. I felt possibility. I started at Stonehaven quietly. No announcements, no press releases. Just a small office, a direct phone line, and the freedom to work the way I knew worked. While Rebecca Thornton was busy implementing client success platforms and relationship management systems, I was doing what I had always done, listening to people and solving their problems. The first client who found me was Mrs. Patterson. She had left Meridian after her third frustrating call with Rebecca. Someone had given her my new number. We talked for an hour. She moved her $12 million portfolio to Stonehaven that same week. Word travels fast in client services. Not through press releases or marketing campaigns, but through quiet conversations and referrals. The Morrison account called within the month. Then the Hendersons. Then the Westfield Trust. Each client who left Meridian didn't just take their portfolio. They took their trust, their referrals, their family members' accounts. The network effect that had taken me 23 years to build was now working in reverse for them. At Stonehaven, I wasn't fighting bureaucracy or justifying my methods to people half my age. I was building something sustainable, something that honored both innovation and experience. Jonathan gave me the resources to hire the right people, not the cheapest people. We focused on quality over quantity, relationships over metrics. Meanwhile, Rebecca was learning what I had always known. Client services isn't about systems and processes. It's about people. And people don't trust systems. They trust other people. The industry is small, and news travels. Former colleagues reached out discreetly. Meridian's client retention numbers were dropping. Rebecca had hired consultants to analyze the client experience journey. David Thornton was asking questions about quarterly projections. I felt no satisfaction in their struggles. I felt something much more powerful. I felt free. The first major client loss hit Meridian 6 weeks after I left. The Blackwood Family Trust, worth $45 million, moved to Stonehaven. They had been with Meridian for 12 years, but they had been my clients for 12 years. Rebecca had met them twice. The second loss was even more devastating. Hartford Industries, a corporate account worth $78 million, decided not to renew their contract. They cited concerns about service continuity and preference for a more personalized approach. They didn't mention me by name in their departure letter, but they didn't need to. Everyone knew. David Thornton finally called me directly. I had been expecting it. "Vera, I hope you're doing well," he said, using the warm tone he reserved for his biggest clients. "I was hoping we could talk. Maybe over lunch." "I'm quite busy, David. What can I do for you?" "Well, I was thinking. This transition has been challenging. Rebecca is doing great work, but there might be value in having you consult on some of our key relationships. Part-time, of course. Competitive rate." I let the silence stretch. Let him feel the weight of his decision. "I'm not available for consulting," I said finally. "But I appreciate the call." "Vera, please. I think there might have been some misunderstanding about your departure. We value your experience. We always have. You valued my experience so much that you replaced me with someone who had never worked in client services. Someone whose primary qualification was sharing your last name. That's not how it happened. David, I worked for you for 23 years. I know exactly how it happened. You decided I was too old, too expensive, and too set in my ways. And maybe you were right. But I'm not too old to remember, and I'm not too set in my ways to start over. I hung up. It was the most satisfying conversation I'd had in months. The industry publications started noticing Stonehaven's growth in the third quarter. Boutique firm sees unprecedented client acquisition. Stonehaven Wealth Management disrupts traditional financial services. The articles mentioned our innovative approach to client relationships and our experienced leadership team. They didn't mention Meridian directly, but they didn't need to. Everyone knew where our clients had come from. Rebecca lasted 7 months. David announced her departure as a strategic career move and her decision to pursue opportunities in fintech. The truth was simpler. She had lost $200 million in client assets and couldn't figure out how to stop the bleeding. They hired a replacement from outside the company. Someone with experience this time. Someone closer to my age. But it was too late. The damage was done. Client trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild. And institutional knowledge, once lost, can't be replaced with good intentions and expensive consultants. I watched from a distance as Meridian struggled to stabilize. They brought in crisis management specialists. They offered retention bonuses to remaining clients. They restructured their fee system to be more competitive. But they couldn't compete with what I had built at Stonehaven. Not because I was better than them, but because I understood something they had forgotten. In client services, relationships matter more than innovations. Experience matters more than disruption. And trust matters more than everything else combined. David Thornton called me one last time, 8 months after he had fired me. I didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. His voice was different. Strained. Desperate. Vera, it's David. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to reach out. I made a mistake. A big mistake. I let my ego get in the way of good judgment, and I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. He paused. I could hear him breathing. I don't know if you'd be interested, but I'd like to offer you your position back. Actually, more than your position. Head of Client Services. Full autonomy. Equity stake. Whatever it takes. Another pause. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for your help. The company is struggling, and I think you might be the only person who can save it. I listened to the message 3 times. Then I deleted it. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Some trust, once broken, can't be repaired. And some mistakes are too expensive to forgive. I had spent 23 years building something for David Thornton. Now I was building something for myself. And I had no intention of looking back. Stonehaven's success wasn't announced with fanfare. There were no press conferences or victory laps. Growth in wealth management is measured in years, not quarters. But the numbers told the story. $400 million in assets under management in the first year, $600 million by the end of the second year. Meridian's decline was equally quiet. No dramatic collapse, no bankruptcy filing. Just a slow erosion of market share, reputation, and relevance. They exist still, but as a shadow of what they once were. David Thornton sold the company 18 months after he fired me. The buyers kept the name but replaced the entire leadership team. Rebecca moved to California and started a lifestyle blog about finding balance in corporate America. I felt no satisfaction in their failure. I felt something much more valuable. I felt vindicated. At 59, I had learned that age isn't a liability in client services. It's an asset. Experience isn't outdated, it's irreplaceable. And loyalty isn't a weakness, it's a competitive advantage. The young consultants who had advised David to modernize his workforce had forgotten something fundamental. In a relationship business, relationships are everything. And relationships take time to build, patience to maintain, and wisdom to nurture. I had all three. Rebecca had none. What happened to me at Meridian wasn't unique. Every day, experienced professionals are pushed aside for younger, cheaper, more innovative alternatives. Companies convince themselves that institutional knowledge is a burden rather than an asset. But here's what they don't understand. In service industries, experience isn't about knowing old systems. It's about understanding human nature. It's about recognizing that behind every client file is a person with fears, hopes, and needs that can't be addressed with apps and algorithms. Age discrimination isn't just morally wrong. It's strategically stupid. When you fire someone with decades of client relationships, you're not just losing an employee. You're losing a network, a reputation, and a competitive advantage that took years to build. The irony is that Meridian's attempt to modernize made them less competitive, not more. They confused innovation with disruption, progress with change, and efficiency with effectiveness. I didn't destroy Meridian. I just stopped holding it together. And when I left, they discovered that I had been the foundation all along. The strange phone call that changed everything wasn't strange at all. It was the natural result of building a career based on competence rather than connections, relationships rather than politics, and results rather than rhetoric. Jonathan Pierce called me because he had been watching my work for years. He recognized value that my own employer had dismissed. He offered me something Meridian never had: respect for experience, appreciation for expertise, and the freedom to do what I did best. I didn't need revenge. I needed recognition. And when I found it, everything else followed naturally. The most powerful response to age discrimination isn't legal action or public protest. It's walking away with your dignity intact and proving that they were wrong to let you go. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being better somewhere else. Today, Stonehaven is one of the most respected wealth management firms in the region. We've grown slowly, deliberately, focusing on quality over quantity. Our client retention rate is 98%. Our average client relationship is 15 years. I'm 61 now. In David Thornton's worldview, I'm even more obsolete than I was when he fired me. But I've never felt more valuable. Age has given me perspective, patience, and the confidence to trust my instincts. The young advisors who work for me don't see me as a relic. They see me as a mentor. They understand that innovation and experience aren't opposites, they're complements. The best solutions combine cutting-edge technology with timeless principles. I've learned that career setbacks aren't endings. They're redirections. Being fired at 57 forced me to confront my own assumptions about age, value, and worth. It taught me that I had been underestimating myself for years. The company that fired me for being too old is now struggling to survive. The company that hired me for my experience is thriving. The difference isn't in the market conditions or the economic climate. The difference is in understanding that some things can't be automated, disrupted, or replaced. Trust is one of them. Relationships are another. And experience is the foundation of both. If you've ever been told you're too old, too expensive, or too set in your ways, remember this: they're not describing your limitations. They're describing their own. The right opportunity, the right environment, and the right leadership will recognize your value. And when they do, everything changes. Sometimes the best career move is the one you never planned to make. Sometimes the greatest success comes from being underestimated. And sometimes the most satisfying victory is the one where you don't have to say a word. Your work speaks for itself. Your results tell the story. And your exit can be the beginning of something even better. Age isn't a barrier to success. It's a pathway to wisdom. And wisdom, in the right hands, is the most powerful competitive advantage of all.